Superman vs. Goku. Who is narratively stronger? Among the many reasons we like to pair Superman against Goku, the main one is not the raw power, but the importance on their respective media. Because just as Superman is the iconic superhero, Goku is the iconic manga hero, and both of them have inspired plenty of successors, which delve into the many ways characters like them could develop. If you are into comics or manga, it's pretty obvious how both of them are the founding fathers of the genre, and at the same time, the coagulation of the genres before them. Goku is a cumulus of the legend of the Monkey King, kung fu movies, soft science fiction, and some of the lore developed in the video game and fantasy industry of the time, while Superman is a mixture of the American dream, the science heroes, adventure heroes, and the political movements of the time, so it's easy to see how many elements were required to give birth to even one of them, and time has proven their lasting value, despite the changes in their societies. But the other reason to make them fight is pretty simple. They have cool powers, and we want to see them destroying each other with those cool powers. Now, plenty of time has passed since both characters were created, and they are still valid as the basis for other characters, so I'm going to analyze which of them is superior character from a narrative point of view. Comparing their characteristics, both of them are really good people, with powers granted by their lineage, and a model of inspiration for those around them, who are also saving the world on a regular basis. But that's it. For those who are adept at exploring the ways of narrative, Goku and Superman are not really that similar. Goku is all about the personal posture in front of a challenge, and it can be easily resumed with the stance of never surrendering. While Superman has the same posture as one of his traits, but also constantly dwells into the effects of his power over humanity and the danger of him becoming a god of humans. This difference can be explained by defining them on a single narrative term. Superman has one story to tell. What happens when you have no limits? Goku has one story to tell. What happens when you have a challenge in front of you? These are the basic stories for both of them, but the nature of the story and the nature of the characters makes them capable of very different developments. The problem here is that Goku has been completely established as a foolish person who is only passionate about fighting, and that limits his challenges to those of fighting, because if he gets a challenge in any other field, he simply is not interested, and the shonen narrative demands a more powerful enemy as a means to move the story each time. Basically, a strong Goya arrives and Goku must defeat him. That's his story to tell. Superman has the advantage of numbers, as he has existed by far more years than Goku, and has been reinvented by plenty of authors, who have constantly increased and deepened his archetype, while Goku seems to be trapped inside his own character, because after so many years of establishing him as a love-faceted person, it's pretty much impossible to change his personality without jumping the shark. Contrary to Superman, at the beginning of his story, Goku had a more adaptable personality, and he became less and less flexible until he became the Goku of Dragon Ball Z, and now all his troubles are related to fighting, or to him ignoring the other aspects of life where he is not that proficient. Even more is the fact that all of the other characters in the show agree that fighting is pretty much the only solution, or it would be more precise to say that the show is based on a formula where fighting is the only choice of development. On the completely opposite of the spectrum, Superman is not just a fighter, but also has a civilian identity that properly explored gives us so much space for trying new stuff. Among some of the most curious Superman stories we have the late Mr. Kent, about how Clark Kent is killed during the investigation of a murder, and now Superman must find the killer. Or the comic Under a Yellow Sun, where Superman fights the weapon black market while Clark Kent has problems to finish his new novel. There are also the problems to relate with Superboy, who is a clone of himself, giving him a family problem and an ethical problem when dealing with a clone. We also have the personal problems from the difference in viewpoints among many other characters, and many other scenarios for a personal development besides the fight with superpowers. And that is all. Superman is more flexible, and because of that he can be a subject of many developments, while Goku not only has one development, but also takes space from the developments of other characters, and unlike other martial arts stories that came later, Dragon Ball left the spiritual component aside, and now it's not possible to introduce it because Goku has become too rigid of a character. But if you still want to make them fight with superpowers, then Superman also has an advantage, and that is the advantage of the genre, because while Goku has the key at his disposal, Superman has a varied range of abilities that are based on physics, and reality-bending powers always have the advantage over brute force. So far, the only ability the Steve fighters to mess with physics is at most to break from a pocket dimension using a really loud scream and an energy explosion. Yeah, sure, Goku may be able to gain more and more levels of Super God colored ki, but at the height of his power, Superman became so ridiculously powerful that he abstained himself from interacting with other humans, because he could render them irrelevant just by being among them. And this happens in the distant future, where all humans have superpowers. The story goes like this. In the event 1,000,000, Superman was known to have a successor, and abandoned the Earth after all his relatives died of old age. Then he decided to roam among space, to discover the wonders it might hide, and in the year 10,000 he came back to Earth, changed with new and mysterious powers, gained after basking in the energies of the limits of the universe. When Superman realized all humans had superpowers, and that by comparison his descendants were not really that super anymore, he made a deal with them, and granted them new powers as long as they stayed as guardians of Earth, and then retired to live in the sun, from where he radiated the energy his descendants absorbed to sustain those new powers. For example, in one number there is a being called the Chronobor, who feeds on time itself, and this Superman descendant is capable of fighting him, just with the second-hand powers given by Superman. Such ridiculous levels of reality-bending powers are the reason Superman is not shown in the story, precisely because if he appears, everyone else becomes irrelevant by the enormous difference in power. While Goku's story is all about being relevant in the face of danger. Goku's story is about gaining power, and Superman's story is about having power without losing your humanity. That is the main difference that makes Superman more complex than Goku, because no matter how powerful Goku becomes, all you have to do is to give Superman the same amount of power, and give him a moral dilemma to make him more interesting. And that's it. By the way, when I was thinking how to end this video, I realized that is why so many people end their videos with comment, like and subscribe, because it gives a proper closure to that feeling of, am I covering all that can be covered? Is the video long enough? Shall I add something? Increase a little? That stuff.